I'm Jill, I'm an alcoholic.
Jill.
I forgot that this was a short reading. I forgot that this was a short reading.
Better?
Such a long process. Step 4, resentments. So I've been through this process with the help of a Big Book Step Study sponsor, meetings like this. I found a higher power by doing this work, and I've made amends. I have some amends to make, and I work 10, 11, 12 to the best of my willingness on a daily basis. Thanks, Christine, for asking me to share. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about step 4 and resentments, because that's the step we're on, and that's what I'm supposed to do. But aside from all that, I wanted to talk about, when I did this work, I really didn't understand what I was doing, right? I just followed directions because I was desperate, and I didn't want to keep living my life the way I had been for 44 years. I was, isolated and down on myself and just, beat up. And I asked for help, and so when I got the help and got into Big Book Step Study, I followed the directions. And so when they told me to sit down and write down all these resentments, I thought, wow, this is great. Somebody's going to listen to all of this stuff that people have done to me, because I'm, they're gonna think, wow, you're still alive. That's amazing, right? And it wasn't until a long time later, after I had done the 4th step and the the turnarounds, that I started to see things. But even that, still, you read in these few pages about how, resentment's the number 1 killer and all of these things. And it wasn't until I read this book here. It's Steps and Stories. It's by this guy Sandy Beach, which is either a made-up name or his mother had a great sense of humor. But he talks about that resentments are, like the projector, right? And he says he has this thing called the projector. It's the projector, stupid, right? Because we think there's something wrong with, like, the screen, right? Everything that we think about, or the things that we see, oftentimes we lie to ourselves about what that is, right? So somebody makes a face at me, oh, they hate me, they might not even know me, but, all of a sudden their world is all about me, right? They say that the ego is completely running the show, right? And he uses this analogy that it's we hear it's an inside job. Well, for me, I didn't even know what that meant. It's an inside job, right? But in this analogy, it's like he says it's the slides. It's the slides there's something wrong with, right? You have to go to the slide. It's not the screen. It's the slides that we're putting into the projector that are messed up, right? And it says, that we have to have a spiritual solution, because with a spiritual solution we can straighten out physically and mentally. Physically is, I found, the easier part, right? And not because not because I didn't like the effect still, because I still liked the effect, even though the rest of my life was caving around me. That elusive, comforting first drink always made things seem really, really good to me. But I could, especially earlier in my career, I was much more of a binge drinker. So putting the drink down, I was like, that's, that was the easy part, but how do I stop from picking up the next drink? That was always the thing that confounded me. So what my sponsor told me to do was to write down the names of everyone that I I had a resentment against. Well, I wasn't even sure what a resentment was, right? I wasn't sure, I didn't know that I had a resentment against my brother, right? I just thought he was an asshole. Okay, well, this is going to be a long list, because I think there's a lot of people that fit that description, right? So she said to me, don't just sit, what you need to do is you need to sit with a notebook and you need to say the third step prayer, and then you need to ask God to guide your hand and to write down the names that need to be, reviewed. And at that point, I didn't have a relationship with God, so I'm like, this is kind of funny. But I did it, right? And there were names that came down that I didn't think I had a resentment against. Some names, there was one name that came down, I don't even know who the heck it was. I was like, who is that? But what I did is I had to trust and rely, because I knew that everything that I had done up to this point on my own wasn't working. It got me in the basement of my home at 8:01, drinking until I passed out or went to bed, right? And so I did what she said. I had to sit 3 times for more, 15 minutes or more. I had to say the third step prayer. If I was interrupted, like kid came in or, phone rang or whatever, I was to go back to it and say the third step prayer again, right? And this kind of felt weird, but I did it. Then we went through, I wrote way too long, for way too long. Not so much on this part, because the resentments were easy for me, right? I just kept writing down all the things that people did to me that pissed me off, or that I didn't like, or that I thought, I was better than, or whatever. And then we met, and she said, okay, now we're going to do the other column. And I'm like, all right. So she says, she lays out the 4th column, and I'm like, I was just like, are you kidding me? Because if I knew I had to do this, there's no way I would have written down all these people, right? It's I felt bamboozled a little bit, But I had been in meetings. I heard people like me now speaking, but I never picked up on it, because I'm so contained with self-fear and ego and whatever, that when somebody said I could write down crap about other people, the floodgates opened, right? But it was really that other side. That's how we clean the slides, right? We look at the perception that the story we've created around every connection or interaction that we have with people. And for me, it was warped. It was warped around low self-esteem, the fact that I had a single mother in the 60s, which was not, there wasn't a lot of them. They were still married miserably, I guess. Or they were happily married. I mean, that's also a possibility. I had a brother who had an active heroin addiction, and I had a lot of things that I thought made me different, and because I judged myself and my family messages were of shame, I took that on, right? So I had to go through all these things. I had to go through all of the stories that I told myself. What did I want, I try to think about some of the things my mother working, not being around, right? And that was one of my resentments. She was never around, right? And then in the turnaround, it was what did I want? I wanted her to be more around. I wanted her to be here for us, right? Well, first of all, it's an unrealistic expectation, and it's out of my control, right? I can't control my mother. I'm a kid, right? But what the lie was that I told myself is that she didn't give a crap about us, where was she, And the truth is that she was working 3 jobs because my brother was stealing from us, and she had to, she was a single mother with 5 kids, she worked all those jobs because she loved us, right? It's a lot easier to turn your back on that, I think, or, to do whatever, even give your kids up or drink under the pressure or do whatever, but she busted her ass, because she loved us. But see how warped that was, right? So what did I do? I judged my mother. I felt bad for myself, right? Oh, poor me, I had to do extra chores, or whatever. And then the fear was really of being abandoned. That was set off much earlier in my life. It was not being good enough, right? Or what other people might think, or emotional security. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? And so these self-seeking things that I did made me feel better about, or made me feel less fearful, right? That's why they feel like coping skills. They feel like they're holding me together, right? And as I got older in middle school and high school, and I had another level of shame because of my homosexuality, drinking really helped that. It helped me fit in. It helped me not feel so isolated. It helped me not care what other people thought. It was an elixir of great power, and I thought that actually helped. And in fact, there's part of me that thinks that did help me survive. I didn't kill myself, or I didn't, do other weird things. I just, it kind of helped keep me together. But the thing is that all of this way of living became my way of living, right? I made up stories to take care of my fears. That's what I did. I had no God to rely on, because my God, the God I was given, was, homosexuality was bad. So I didn't ever feel like I could have a God that would protect me or care about me. So when I came into AA, that was a done deal. I wasn't going to have a higher power. Like, I was all set with that. But once you start to see people that come in battered and bruised and whatever, and they do this work, and they're like completely transposed, and I've even seen gay people in here, that talk about God now, and that aren't drinking themselves to death. Like, wow, like, it's possible, right? And so that helped me to create a God of my understanding, right? Somebody is a higher power that loved me for who I was, and to believe that there was a life, a way of life that they had in their mind that was better than mine, right? So I did this work, and it's transformative, and I think I would say that. In this book that I mentioned, that if any of you ever want to, this is not cool, it's I can't see without them. I forgot my glasses. But there's one thing in here. It says that now that we're awake and we see how things really are, we can live in this awakened state, right? That's what the fourth step does for us. And he says that it's important. It's so important, the fourth step, that we have devoted 2/3 of our program, or let's see, what does it say exactly? Because I'm not good with numbers. 2 steps devoted to it, right? 4 and 10, right? And that inventory constitutes 1/6 of our program. That's how important it is, right? So the good news and the bad news is the good news is the fourth step taught me how to be consistent, and taught me how to look for my selfishness, my dishonesty, my lies, my self-lies, right, and all of that, the truth. It also taught me consistently on writing, right, getting over the fear of writing, and got me ready for step 10, because step 10, spoiler alert, is that you're going to be writing inventory, right? So the bad news is that you finish the 4th, but the 10 never gets done. So you're always writing, right? And and that feels like a crushing blow when you're in the 4th. But it's so much simpler for me to talk with another alcoholic, keep an appointment with my sponsor, or write out an inventory than it is to drink myself to death, fear everything, ripple affect my mess to my family, my friends, not even friends, because you don't have many after that, except other people that are doing the same thing. So I'm just really grateful that I've done this work and that I continue to do this work, and that I found a higher power. I don't think I would have if I hadn't done this process, because I've said this before, but nothing in my 4th step was earth-shattering. I either knew it or I heard it, mostly from my mom or other close people in my life that were telling me, all this stuff. But the power wasn't there until it came from my own hand, my own mind, with a connection with God, that I felt like now I could trust, because I could see the truth. And I couldn't see it up until then. I wasn't awakened. God helped me to awaken my higher power. So if you're doing this work, please continue. Don't sit in it as long as I did. If you like dirty diapers, I guess you can, but it's way better once you get the diaper off and you can live in a cleaner environment. So thanks for listening.